Third fruit. This fruit looks to conscious beings and particularly to man. Through the mystery of divine unity, among all creatures man may attain to the highest perfections and become the most valuable fruit of the universe, the most perfect and refined of creatures, the most fortunate and happy of animate beings, and the addressee and friend of the world's creator. Indeed, all man's perfections and his lofty aims are tied to the affirmation of divine unity and find existence through its meaning. For if there were no unity, man would be the most unhappy of creatures, the lowest of beings, the most wretched of the animals, the most suffering and sorrowful of intelligent beings. For, together with his infinite impotence, his innumerable enemies, his boundless want, and endless needs, he has been decked out with a great many faculties and senses, so that he feels innumerable sorts of pains and experiences countless sorts of pleasures. He has such aims and desires that one who does not govern the whole universe at once cannot bring about those desires. For example, man has an intense desire for immortality. Only one who has disposal over the whole universe, as though it were a palace, can answer this wish, who can close the door of this world and open that of the hereafter, like closing the door of one room and opening that of another. Man also has thousands of desires, both negative and positive, which, like the desire for immortality, spread throughout the world and stretch to eternity. It is only the single one who, through the mystery of unity, holds the whole universe in his grasp, that by answering these desires of man can cure the two awesome wants of his impotence and want. Moreover, man has wishes for tranquility and ease of heart, so insubstantial, secret, and particular, and aims connected with the immortality and happiness of his spirit so vast, comprehensive, and universal, that they can be answered only by one who sees the subtlest and most imperceptible ways of his heart and is not unconcerned, and hears its most inaudible, secret voices and does not leave them unanswered. That one must also have sufficient power to subjugate the heavens and earth as though they were two obedient soldiers and make them perform universal words. Also, through the mystery of unity, all man's members and senses gain a high value, while by ascribing partners to God and disbelief they fall to an infinitely low degree. For example, man's most valuable faculty is intelligence. Through the mystery of divine unity, it becomes a brilliant key to the sacred divine treasuries and to the thousands of coffers of the universe. Whereas, if it descends to associating partners with God and to unbelief, it becomes an inauspicious instrument of torture which heaps up in man's head all the grievous pains of the past and awesome fears of the future. Also, for example, compassion, man's most gentle and agreeable characteristic, if the mystery of divine unity does not come to its assistance, it becomes a calamitous torment which reduces man to the depths of misery. A heedless mother who imagines she has lost her only child for all eternity feels this searing pain to the full. Also, for example, love, man's sweetest, most pleasurable, and most precious emotion. If the mystery of divine unity assists it, it gives minuscule man the expanse and breadth of the universe and makes him a petted monarch of the animals. Whereas, if I seek refuge with God, man descends to associating partners with God and unbelief, because he will be separated from all eternity from all his innumerable beloveds, as they continuously disappear in death. Love becomes a terrible calamity, constantly lacerating his wretched heart. But vain amusements, causing heedlessness temporarily numb his senses, apparently not allowing him to feel it. If you make analogies with these three examples for man's hundreds of faculties and senses, you will understand the degree to which divine unity and the affirmation of it are the means by which he may be fulfilled and perfected. This third fruit too has been very well explained in detailed manner with proofs in perhaps 20 of the treatises of the illuminating lamp, so I am sufficing with this brief indication here. What impelled me to this fruit was the following feeling. At one time, I was on the top of a high mountain. A spiritual awakening powerful enough to dispel my heedlessness showed me death and the grave in all their stark reality and transcends an ephemerality with all their painful representations. Like everyone's, my innate desire for immortality surged up and rebelled against death. The fellow feeling and compassion in my nature too revolted against the annihilation of the people of perfection, the famous prophets, the saints, and the prophet ones, for whom I feel great love and attachment. It boiled up angrily against the grave. I looked in the 6 directions seeking help, but I found no solace, no assistance. For, looking to the past, I saw a vast graveyard, and to the future, darkness, and above I saw horror, and to the right and left, grievous situations, and the assaults of numberless harmful things. Suddenly, the mystery of divine unity came to my assistance and drew back the veil, revealing the face of reality. Look, it said. First of all, I looked at the face of death, which I feared greatly. I saw that, for the people of belief, it was a discharge from duties. The appointed hour was the discharge papers. It was a change of abode, the introduction to an everlasting life, and the door leading to it. It was to be released from the prison of this world and to fly to the gardens of paradise. It was the occasion one enters the presence of the most merciful in order to receive the wages for one's service. It was a call to go to the realm of bliss. Understanding this with complete certainty, I began to love death. I looked then at transcendence and ephemerality, and I saw them to be a pleasurable renewal, like pictures on the cinema screen and bubbles on flowing water under the sun. Coming from the world of the unseen in order to refresh the exquisite manifestations of the most beautiful names, they were an excursion, a trip in the manifest world with certain duties to perform. They were a wise and purposeful manifestation of dominical beauty. They performed the function of mirrors to the eternal beauty of beings. This I knew with certainty. I then looked at the 6 directions, and I saw that, through the mystery of divine unity, they were so luminous they dazzled the eyes. I saw that the past was not a vast grave, but having been transformed into the future, had become thousands of enlightened gatherings of threads and thousands of light-filled vistas. I looked at the true faces of thousands of matters like these two, and I saw that they afforded nothing but joy and thanks. I have described my feelings about this third fruit with proofs, particular and universal, in perhaps 40 treatises of the illuminating lamp. They have been explained so clearly and decisively in the 13 herbs of the 26th flush, in particular, the treatise for the elderly, that there could be no clearer elucidation. Here, therefore, I have cut this very long story very short. Second station. There are incalculable proofs necessitating in absolutely certain form divine unity and the affirmation of it, which neither accept nor permit the association of partners with God. Since hundreds and perhaps thousands of these are demonstrated in detail in the Risale-i Nur, here only 3 of them which necessitate divine unity will be set out briefly. The first, according to the testimony of the wise and discerning acts which are to be observed in the universe, creatures are made through the limitless attributes and names of an all-wise sovereign, one perfect and mighty, whose knowledge and power are absolute. Yes, it may be surmised certainly from the works in the universe that their maker possesses sovereignty and rulership at the degree of absolute dominicality, and grandeur and magnificence at the degree of absolute might, and perfection and self-sufficiency at the degree of absolute Godhead, and that his activity and rule are absolutely without restriction or limit, these are understood clearly and are visible. As for sovereignty, grandeur, perfection, self-sufficiency, absoluteness, comprehensiveness, unrestrictedness, and unlimitedness, they necessitate unity and are opposed to partnership. The testimony to unity of sovereignty and rulership. This has been proved with complete certainty in numerous places in the Risale-i Nur. A brief summary is as follows. The mark of rulership is independence, solitariness, and the rejection of interference. Rulership necessitates this. Due to only a shadow of rulership, impotent men, even who by their natures are in need of assistance, reject the interference of others and preserve their independence. It is for this reason that there cannot be two kings in a country, or two governors of a province, two mayors of a town, or even two headmen of a village. If there are two of any of these, it leads to chaos, rebellions break out, and law and order are overturned. Since a mere shadow of rulership in impotent man, need of assistance repels the partnership and interference of others. To this extent, surely the rulership, which is in the form of the demonicality of an absolutely powerful one, free of all impotence, will in no way accept any partners or interference. He will reject it vehemently and angrily repulse from his court those who ascribe imaginary partners to him. The all-wise Qur'an's severe threats against those who ascribe partners to God arise from this truth. The testimony to unity of grandeur, magnificence, and glory. This too has been explained with brilliant proofs in the Risale-i Nur, and here a very brief meaning of it is alluded to. For example, the magnificence and grandeur of the sun's light leave no need for any weak lights near to it. Its light dims the power of other lights. Similarly, the magnificence and immensity of divine power leave no need for any other force or power, and afford no other power a true effect or ability to create. Especially living and conscious beings, which are the points on which of all the dominical aims in the universe turn, and where they are concentrated, it is impossible that they should be referred to others. It is also in no way possible that the fruits, results, and circumstances of man's creation and of living beings, which are the origin of innumerable source of bounties, and where the aims of their creation are manifested, should be referred to other hands. For example, it would be an affront to the magnificence of demonicality for an animate being to be truly grateful to anyone other than Almighty God for being healed from some minor ailment, or for some sustenance, or for guidance, and to praise and applaud the person extravagantly. The grandeur of the Godhead would be offended, the dignity of the absolute object of worship affronted, and his glory vexed. How perfection points to the mystery of unity. Again, this has been explained with brilliant proofs in the Risale-i Nur, and an extremely brief meaning of it is this. Self-evidently, the creation of the heavens and earth necessitate an absolute power of utter perfection. The wondrous bodily systems of animate beings also necessitate a power of absolute perfection. And the perfection of an absolute power which is exempt from impotence and free of restriction necessitates unity. For to apply defect to perfection and restrict the unrestricted, and to make infinity finite and reduce the strongest power to the weakest impotence means making an infinite power finite with something finite at a time it is infinite, and this is utterly impossible in 5 ways. The testimonies to unity of unrestrictedness, comprehensiveness, and infinity. This too has been mentioned in detail in the treatises of the illuminating lamp. A summary of its meaning is as follows. Since, by spreading pervasively around their own works, the acts in the universe all show that they are comprehensive and unrestricted, unlimited, and absolute, and since partners and participation place a restriction on the comprehensiveness and unrestrictedness and limit the unlimitedness, destroying their nature and reality. Most certainly, partnership in those acts which are absolute and comprehensive is impossible and precluded. Yes, the very nature of unrestrictedness is opposed to partnership, for its meaning, even infinite, material, and limited things, is to spread, pervade, and permeate everywhere. For example, if air, light, and heat, and even water manifested unrestrictedness, they would spread everywhere. Since this aspect of unrestrictedness makes physical and limited things invasive, even if they are particular, surely true, universal unrestrictedness would afford such encompassment and pervasiveness to attributes that were both infinite and free of matter, and unlimited and free of defect, that there could be no possibility whatsoever of their accepting any partners or partnership. In short, both the sovereignty and the grandeur and the perfection and the comprehensiveness and the unrestrictedness and the infinity of thousands of general acts and the hundreds of divine names whose manifestations are to be seen in the universe are extremely powerful proofs of divine unity and the affirmation of it. Also, a superior force wants to outrun its surroundings in order to become activated, scattering other forces. Similarly, it is apparent from all the works of the immortality and manifestations of the names of the Godhead that their forces are so extraordinarily overwhelming that if it were not for general sovereignty and absolute justice which prevent them, they would have overrun all beings. For example, is that all possible that the universal power which creates all the poplar trees on the earth and administers them should not take under its control single specimens of the walnut, apple, and apricot which have become interspersed among the poplars, and not regulate them and dominate them, or that it should hand them over to other forces? Yes, in all species of creatures, and even in each of their members, a governing force and power are felt which clearly have the capacity to outrun the whole universe and subjugate all beings. Certainly, such a power would not accept partners of any sort, nor permit partnership. Also, for the owner of a fruit-bearing tree, the matter of greatest importance is the fruit at the tips of the tree's branches, and for future planting, the seeds in the hearts of its fruits, rather that are the hearts of its fruits. If the tree's owner has any sense, he will not make his ownership go for nothing by handing over the fruits to someone else. In exactly the same way, the elements, which are the branches of the tree called the universe, and the plants and animals, which are at the tips of the elements, and are like the flowers and leaves of the tree, and human beings, which are the topmost of the leaves and flowers, the owner of the tree would in no way hand over to other forces the worship and thanks of those fruits, which are their most important fruits and the result of their creation, and especially their hearts, the all-encompassing seeds of the fruits, and their faculties of memory, which are known as the outer heart, so negating the sovereignty of his dominicality and cancelling also his fitness to be worshipped. Also, since the aims of dominicality are centered in the particulars at the extremities of the sphere of contingency and multiplicity, and even in the states and circumstances of those particulars, and since they are the source of the thanks, gratitude, and worship, which are extended and look to the one true object of worship, for sure, he would not hand them over to others, and so nullify his wisdom, and by nullifying his wisdom, annul his Godhead. For the most important dominical aim in the creation of beings is to make himself known to conscious beings, and loved, and praised, and extolled, and to attract their gratitude to himself. It is because of this subtle mystery that, in order to demonstrate that the bounties and acts, universal and particular, at the extremities of the sphere of multiplicity, like sustenance, healing, and particularly guidance and belief, which result in thanks, worship, gratitude, love, praise, and worship, are directly the works, bounties, gifts, and acts of the universe's creator, the monarch of all beings. The Qur'an of miraculous exposition repeatedly ascribes sustenance, guidance, and healing to the necessarily extinct one, stating that the bestowal of them is his alone and restricted to him, and strongly rejecting the interference of others. Note, for example, God is the provider, the firm possessor of strength. Yes, the one who bestows the bounty of belief, which wins for a person an abode of bliss, can surely only be the one who creates the abode of bliss and makes belief the key to it. It could only be his bounty. Nobody could shut up this largest window opening onto the true object of worship by bestowing an equally great bounty. No one could block up this most important means to him or steal it. In short, the most particular events and fruits at the tips of the tree of creation testify to divine unity and the affirmation of it in two ways. Firstly, the aims of dominicality in the universe are gathered together in those fruits and events, and their aims are centered on them, and most of the manifestations of the divine names and their determinations and the results of and benefits in the creation of beings are gathered together in them. In this respect, each of them therefore declares, I am the property, act, and work of the one who created the whole universe. The second way, since the hearts of those particular fruits, as well as man's memory, which in a hadith is called the outer heart, are concise indexes of most species of beings, and small maps of them, and bear the meaning of seeds of the tree of the universe, and are subtle mirrors of most of the divine names. And since hearts and memories, which are all similar and bear the same stamp, spread pervasively throughout the universe, they look to the one who holds the whole universe in the grasp of his power, and they each declare, I am the work and art of him alone. To conclude, with regard to its benefits, a fruit looks to its tree's owner. With regard to its seed, it looks to all the parts, members, and nature of the tree. And with regard to the stamp on its face, it gazes on all the fruits of the tree whose stamp is the same. Together they declare, we are all the same and we have one maker. We are the property of a single person. Whoever made one of us made all of us. In exactly the same way, in regard to the stamps on the faces of the living creatures at the extremities of the sphere of multiplicity, and especially the stamps on man's face and his index-like heart, and the results of his nature and his being a fruit, they look directly to the one who holds the whole universe in the grasp of his power and testify to his unity. The second matter necessitating divine unity. This is the fact that in unity are an ease and facility which render it necessary, while in associating partners with God are difficulties to the point of preclusion. This truth has been explained and demonstrated with brilliant and decisive proofs in many of the treatises of what Imam Ali, may God be pleased with him, called the illuminating lamp, especially in the 20th letter, in detail, and in the 4th point of the 30th flash, briefly. It has been demonstrated with powerful proofs that if all things are attributed to one single being, the creation and regulation of the universe are as easy as the creation and regulation of a tree, and the creation and making of a tree are as easy as the creation and making of a fruit, and the origination and management of the spring are as easy as the origination and management of a flower, and the administration and raising of a species containing numerous members are as free of trouble as the administration and raising of a single individual. But, in contrast, if, on the way of associating partners with God, all things are ascribed to causes and nature, the creation of a single being is as difficult as that of a species, indeed, of many species, and the creation and decking out of a single living flower as difficult as the creation and decking out of the spring or many springs, and the creation making, raising to life, administering, nurturing, directing, and regulation of a tree as difficult as the creation and so on of the universe, or even more difficult. Since the reality of the matter has been thus proved in the illuminating lamp, and since, as we see plainly before us, together with the very highest degree of art and the greatest value, there is a superabundance of beings, and together with being wondrous machines, with numerous miraculous components and members, all living creatures come into existence in absolute profusion infinitely easily, with extraordinary speed, just like striking a match. It demonstrates necessarily and self-evidently that the profusion and ease arise from unity and from their being the works of a single being. Otherwise, let alone cheapness, abundance, speed, ease, and value, a fruit now obtained for 5 para would not have been obtainable for 500 lira, or would have been so rare as to have been unobtainable. And the creation of living beings, which resemble regular machines that work like setting a clock or turning on an electric switch, would have been so difficult as to have been impossible, and some animals who come into existence together with all their bodily systems and vital conditions in a day, or an hour, or a minute, would not have come into existence in a year, or a century, or perhaps ever at all. It is proved in 100 places in the illuminating lamp so decisively as to silence the most obdurate denier that if all things are ascribed to the single one of unity, they are as easy, swift, and cheap as a single thing. Whereas, if causes and nature are given a share, the creation of a single thing becomes as difficult, slow, unimportant, and expensive as all things. For the proofs of this truth, you may refer to the 20th and 33rd letters, the 22nd and 32nd words, the 23rd flash, which is about nature, and the 30th flash, which is about the greatest name, particularly its 4th and 6th points, which are about the names of single and self-subsistent respectively. There, you will see that it has been proved with the certainty of 2 plus 2 equaling 4. Here, only one of those hundreds of proofs will be alluded to as follows. The creation of things is either from non-existence or from the elements and other beings in the form of composition. If attributed to a single being, that being is bound to have all-encompassing knowledge and power that prevails over all things. In this way, the giving of external existence to things whose forms are present in his knowledge, or who exist as knowledge, and bringing them out of apparent non-existence is as easy and simple as striking a match or spreading a special liquid over invisible writing in order to reveal it, or transposing an image from photographic film to paper. Through the command of be and it is, the maker brings into external existence from apparent non-existence things whose plans, programs, and shapes and proportions are present in his knowledge. If creation is in the form of composition and art, and not creating from non-existence and nothing, and in the form of gathering together from the elements and surroundings, it resembles the members of a regiment mustering at the call of a beagle after having dispersed to rest, and the soldiers collecting together in regular and orderly fashion, and in order to facilitate this exercise and preserve their positions, the whole army being like the power, law, and eye of its commander. In exactly the same way as though they were the power, law, and officials of the monarch of the universe, the minute particles under the command of that monarch, together with the beings with whom they have contact, are mobilized according to the principles of his knowledge and determining and the laws of his pervasive power. In order to form a living being, they assume a specified measure and proportion which resembles an immaterial mold specified by divine knowledge and determining, and there they stop. If things are referred to different hands and causes and to nature, then, as all the reasonable agree, no cause can in any way create from nothing and non-existence. For causes do not possess comprehensive knowledge and all-pervading power, and non-existence would not be only apparent and external, it would be absolute, and absolute non-existence can in no way be the source of existence. In which case, creation would be in the form of composition. But if it were in the form of composition, the particles of a fly or a flower could come together only with innumerable difficulties after collecting the body of a fly and parts of a flower from all over the earth and passing them through a fine sieve. Even having come together, since there would be no immaterial molds existing as knowledge to preserve them in orderly form without dispersing, physical, natural molds, in fact molds to the number of their members, would be necessary so that the particles that had come together could form the bodies of those living creatures. Thus, the ascribing of all things to a single being is so easy as to be necessary, and the attributing of them to numerous causes so difficult as to be impossible and precluded. Similarly, if all things are ascribed to the single one of unity, they become valuable, full of art, meaningful, and powerful to the utmost degree at the same time as being infinitely cheap. While, if on the way of associating partners with God, they are ascribed to numerous causes and nature, they become valueless and completely lacking in art, meaning, and power, as well as being infinitely expensive.